morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to America. America is the U.S. Embassy's American Center in Indonesia, a space where everyone can experience, explore, and engage with American culture, education, and innovation. And hi, my name is Meriska Putri, and I will be your host for today's special event. Tonight, we are delighted to present a truly special event, Symphony of Numbers, where math meets melody, featuring the Tatsuya Daniel Orchestra. Can we give a big round of applause, everyone? Founded in 2022, and now bringing together approximately 170 members across the United States, the Tatsuya Daniel Orchestra is a global initiative led by Ivy League musicians whose mission is to build connection through music. Their work celebrates diversity, fosters mutual respect, and demonstrates the power of music. And tonight, I want to welcome our audience joining us today at America. We have from Universitas Negeri Jakarta. Hi everyone, welcome. On the other side, we also have Universitas Esa Unggul. Welcome everyone, thank you so much for coming. And are you excited guys for tonight's performance? Once again, are you excited for tonight's performance? Yes, love the spirit. And ladies and gentlemen, now, before we start to officially begin tonight's event, let us first hear the opening remarks that will be delivered by the Public Diplomacy Officer, U.S. Embassy. Everyone, please welcome Katherine Jernigan.
Selamat malam. Hi, everyone. How are you doing today? Good? Good. So yes, my name is Katie Jernigan. I work at the U.S. Embassy in our Public Affairs department, and I'm here to sort of open this program up and talk about, the importance of art and also an education for today's youth. So one of the things that I wanted to mention is today, or like in a few days, is the 250th birthday of the United States. So America is turning 250 years old, which I think is a really special milestone for our country. And one of the things I wanted to sort of mention about, America turning 250 is that, America sort of started as a dream. It was an aspiration of people to do better for themselves, to make their own way, to start their own lives, and that's kind of the foundation of the United States. And I think one of the things that we always tell young people is to follow your dreams. It's so important to follow your dreams. But I think another thing that this program really emphasizes is it's okay to have more than one dream. You don't necessarily have to just do one thing. If you're a physicist, you don't have to only be a physicist. If you're a musician, you don't have to only be a musician. You can think and dream of multiple things, and you can follow multiple passions. And that's what I think is really inspiring about our two performers today, Tats Daniel and Miki, because they have done not just, really learned and educated themselves and did that sort of very traditional like science, math, engineering, physics path, but they've also, really embraced a talent and a passion for music and really focused on how music can kind of connect people across cultures. They've traveled around the world doing different musical programs and also talking about their educational journeys. And I'm really excited that they're able to come here and share that with you guys today. So without further ado, I'll turn it back over to the e-guide, but thank you guys so much for coming, and I really hope you enjoy this program this evening.
Thank you so much for the wonderful opening remarks by our U.S. Embassy officer. And ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned before, we have a special performance tonight. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming the one and only Tatsuya Daniel Orchestra.
Good evening, everybody. As mentioned in the introduction, my name is Dr. Tatsuya Daniel. As you'll hear a little bit later, my background is in physics and in math. I did my bachelor's degree at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, studying those two subjects, and then I did my PhD at Brown University with a research focus in theoretical astrophysics and cosmology. I'm currently a postdoctoral research fellow at McGill University in Canada, and I will be becoming a professor of physics in a few years. We have a performance for you tonight where we will be playing arrangements of original compositions of mine for the Tatsuya Daniel Orchestra, arranged for either solo or duet performers. This first piece that we will play for you is called A Night on the Waterfront. This piece was originally composed for one of the first engagements of the Tatsuya Daniel Orchestra, or TD Orchestra, as I will abbreviate it, to Papua New Guinea, of all places. So this piece has the feel of being on a waterfront, maybe being kind of on a resort island, and just kind of taking in the atmosphere. So this piece is called A Night on the Waterfront. The next piece that you will hear is was a solo piano arrangement of an original composition which was scored for the full 100 plus TD orchestra, which consists of not just strings, woodwinds, brass, percussion, but also a rhythm section. So keyboards, synthesizers, drums, guitars, and electric bass, as well as vocalists and choir singers. So this is a solo piano version of one of the pieces I composed for my orchestra called The World Needs Us. And so this features some rhythmic motifs and also similar chord progressions that's used in the original version. But again, this is minus, of course, all those instruments, and this is also a different version in terms of the exact notes and the structure of the piece. It's a little bit different from the original version, but this is the solo arrangement of The World Needs Us. This next piece that you will hear is it's an arrangement for a smaller ensemble, or this piece, I should say, was originally composed. There's a version of this for my full orchestra, and then it was composed in a smaller group arrangement of around 20 people when we were embarking on, or for one of our first engagements in Papua New Guinea. And since then, this piece has been performed all around the world. We've been to now almost 40 countries in the last 2 years. This piece is called When Nature Went Silent, thinking of kind of the appreciation of nature, and in places where, or at least I wrote this piece in a place where there are seasons. So this piece was composed during the summertime when nature is alive after being dormant for most of the rest of the year. So this is When Nature Went Silent. So the TD Orchestra, the Tatsuya Daniel Orchestra, was not something that I woke up one day and I was like, oh, I want to start this global orchestra. I want to bring people together from, the prestigious universities in the United States, and I want to, bring the world together through music and travel around the world and do all these things. That's not how it started. It began during the pandemic, simply as a way to just keep making music during a time when we couldn't make music as normal. Actually, that was the first time that, at the start of the pandemic, that was when I first began to compose music, despite playing piano and percussion for most of my life and having years of performance experience. That eventually led to I composed an album, which then about 20 musicians of what would eventually become the Tatsuya Daniel Orchestra recorded in 2021, and we released this in early 2022. This album was, when it was released, and it was premiered online with a live stream premiere in February of 2022. It was seen by people all around the world, and this album kind of gained international recognition, and this was really what took this project from just a small, gathering of, MIT plus other musicians to, something on the global stage. So the piece that you're about to hear next is a duet arrangement of one of the pieces of that album called A Beautiful Life. And this album it was not intentional when I wrote it, but this album really kind of tells a story of what it was like to live through the pandemic, and it's kind of meta in the sense that, it was recorded as we were living through the pandemic. So this is a duet arrangement of A Beautiful Life. So this next piece, which you will hear, is actually from the very first project which I mentioned during the pandemic, which we recorded. So this was actually the very first thing that I composed. This piece, it started out as me being a percussionist and playing with other percussionists from MIT. This originally started out as a, hey, let's just play on whatever instruments, just hit stuff that we have at home, being percussionists, and we'll, improvise, and we'll just put this together. Record audio and video of yourself, and we'll put this together. We'll see what happens. The pandemic was actually really a kind of I mean, if it weren't for the pandemic, my orchestra actually wouldn't exist today. And the beginning of the pandemic really, I think, marked the time, looking back on it, where kind of various skills that I had developed was able to come to fruition. I was able to take advantage of that, not just from my performance experience, being able to begin composing and then eventually start conducting through my orchestra, but also through that and my experience in video editing, getting into involving my orchestra and kind of getting through my orchestra and getting that into music production through my video editing skills, and then subsequently, releasing music getting into the music industry. And those are all skills which were necessary to kind of bring this together and eventually form what was my orchestra. This piece is called The Gift of Music. I think for me personally, music has kind of taken even though I, again, like I said, as I mentioned, I'm a physicist, music has really taken my life in a direction which I definitely could not have expected. And having all these experiences, through my orchestra and, around the world, which experiences which I would not have, and things that I've learned through my orchestra, most of which are not music performance related, but all things, and people that I've met, which people that I wouldn't have met otherwise, and really owes to this gift that this gift that music can have, not just in transforming my own personal life and and changing the lives of other people that have been involved in the TD Orchestra, but also inspiring people around the world to follow their dreams, and to you never know what can happen in your life. So this is called The Gift of Music. It's a piano solo from that piece. So the last piece we will perform for you this evening is another piece which has been performed all around the world. And with all the connections that were being made, people reaching out all around the world with this album that I mentioned, which was released in early 2022. This album was called Sounds of Percussion, which featured mostly percussion instruments, because I'm a percussionist, but it had other instruments as well. And what was clear to me, I mean, it wasn't clear to me at the time, what exactly was going to come next after that album. I knew, but I knew it had to continue. This had to continue somehow with the musicians who were very excited to continue doing something, and all these connections that were being made. And it was an exciting time for me because I hadn't anticipated that this could be something on the global, that we could take this globally, internationally. So it was an exciting time for me, but I didn't know what was going to come next. But what I did know is that I could compose another album. This time, now scored for full orchestra, and so some of the pieces that you heard earlier were pieces that were composed at that time. Eventually, that led to the formation of my orchestra, recruiting musicians from to play this music that I had composed, not just from MIT and from Brown, where I was doing my PhD by then, not in music, in physics, in astrophysics. And so then assembling this group, eventually I decided to call it, or name it after myself, called the Tatsuya Daniel Orchestra, which was founded in November of 2022. One of the first things that my orchestra had was music schools and programs around the world, particularly in Africa and in developing countries and in Southeast Asia. And so a few months after founding my orchestra, I decided to compose a piece dedicated to these music schools and programs. And I called this piece "What Makes Us Human," because of music's unique ability to evoke or to bring out traits in human beings that I found to be universal. Having personally traveled around the world, now almost 100 countries, I see that despite different languages and people, the way that different ways people look and and in different different norms and things like this, that music has this ability to kind of reach all people around the world. And this piece was first had its world premiere in the spring of 2023 at Brown University and at MIT. And that was the first time that members of the TD Orchestra actually played together in person, because of up to then it was all virtual. So this is a duet version of What Makes Us Human. And again, thank you for, this is the last piece that we will perform for you this evening. So thank you for being here. And this is part of an Asia tour that we're doing. So Indonesia is actually not the only place we're going to. Something that we may mention a little bit later. But this is 8 countries over the span of this month, from Mongolia to Nepal to Sri Lanka to the Maldives to now here, and then tomorrow continuing to Vietnam, and then from here Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. So it's been wonderful being in Jakarta, and again, thank you all. And this is What Makes Us Human.
Wow, can we have a big round of applause, everyone? Yes. What an incredible performance from Tatsuya, Daniel, and Miki Hansen. How was the performance, everyone? Great. Awesome. Do you guys agree that the performance was amazing? Yes, thank you so much. And I want to tell you about something that the Tatsuya Daniel Orchestra brings together talented musicians from diverse backgrounds who share a passion not only for music but also for creating positive social impact through artistic collaborations. And after their performance, I believe you are excited to hear more about their story. Are we guys agree? Yes. Okay. Now we invite you to go behind the music and learn more about the inspiration, vision, and mission behind this global initiative. And to lead our discussion this evening, please join me in welcoming our moderator from Education USA Advisor, Caroline Darmanto. Please give a big round of applause.
Thank you, May. Hi, good evening, everyone. Hi, so as mentioned before, my name is Caroline. I am one of the Education USA advisors here at America. Um, just a quick question. Do you guys know Education USA? Have you guys heard of Education USA before? No? Okay, so just 1 minute of introduction. So Education USA is a global network under the US Department of State where we help students such as yourselves if you want to study in the US. So we'll help you throughout your application process, information about scholarship, and so on. So if you guys have any questions about studying in the US, please don't forget to book an appointment with any of the advisors at America. You can scan a QR code. It's just right outside. All right, so I bet you guys are excited about today's discussion or tonight's discussion, yeah? All right, so one more time. So please give a round of applause for our speakers. Now, when people think of scientists, people usually think about or often imagine equations or maybe labs, right? But when people think of musicians, they imagine creativity, they imagine emotions. So tonight we'll explore what happens when these two worlds collide. Okay, so hi Miki, hi Tatsuya. So why don't we start with an introduction? So maybe Tatsuya, you can, I know you did a brief introduction of yourself, but why don't we elaborate more in terms of like what drive you to pursue your career and also maybe to pursue music at the same time, and then maybe we'll move to Miki afterwards.
Yeah, so I have been playing piano. Well, I started playing piano when I was 9 years old, and then percussion when I was 10. But growing up, my favorite subject was math. Actually, I was very into numbers. I would write numbers everywhere, and would just write calculations and everything, just like everywhere. Even on the walls of my parents' homes, to the point where it would drive them crazy. But then I also had this interest, this fascination in outer space, like what was out there. You look up at the sky at night, you see these stars, you see these planets. Like, I was just fascinated by that. And I remember when I was 8, my parents gave me a telescope, and that was for me that unlocked a new you could see a new part of, you could see the sky, you could see the cosmos in a way that I hadn't seen before. And so as I got older, I not only was I eventually able to combine math with my interest in physics, because I knew that I didn't want to just study math. I wanted to combine that with physics somehow. So then as I got into high school, I began to take a calculus-based physics class, for example, which really allowed me to combine the two interests. But then also I was getting more involved musically, playing in various different types of ensembles, orchestras, and playing different styles of music. And so I knew that when I got to college, I wanted to study physics and math, but I wanted to continue doing the music, which I had been doing for many years in my life at that point. So then I went to MIT, as I mentioned, for college, and then began doing research specifically in astrophysics and cosmology. And then at that point, I knew that I wanted to pursue a higher PhD in those fields. So then I went to Brown University to get a PhD in physics, and then after finishing that, now I'm as I mentioned in Canada, kind of on the road to becoming a professor of physics.
Hi, amazing. All right. So what about you, Miki?
Yeah, so my name is Miki Hansen. I'm from New Jersey in the US. I went to MIT to do a bachelor's in mechanical engineering with a focus on product design. And then from there, I went to TU Delft in the Netherlands to pursue a master's in integrated product design. Yeah, in terms of what led me to mechanical engineering, growing up, I always was quite crafty and artistic, and also musical. And yeah, I was pretty good at physics and math, so I thought that mechanical engineering would be a good way to combine like doing hands-on things and also solving problems and using physics and math skills. So yeah, kind of like a creative engineering route. And then yeah, that's also why I pursued product design, because yeah, in my bachelor's it was quite technical and theoretical, but I wanted to apply it more to products and services and systems. So the master's was really helpful in learning more about that.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I have a question for Tatsuya next. So you studied physics and mathematics, right, at MIT, and also you completed a PhD in theoretical astrophysics at Brown, and you also founded an international orchestra. So was there ever a point in your life where you felt like you kind of have to choose between music or physics or science?
Yeah, it's. I guess there wasn't. I guess I didn't feel like I necessarily had to choose between the two, but there was definitely like as I was beginning this orchestra and it was getting a lot of traction around the world. There was definitely a point. This was like around halfway. Like I was in my third year of I was around the halfway point of getting in my PhD, where I was like this is not. Like I didn't know anyone who was doing what I was doing, so I was like,
Right.
is this something that I can do? Like on the physics side of things, like I didn't know any colleagues, I didn't know any students, I didn't know any professors even who were like building a global orchestra. So I was
Right.
like, well, like, can I do this? Like, is this gonna work? And then on the music side, I didn't know any of my music friends who were getting a PhD in something rigorous like like astrophysics and and so it was. I just like wasn't sure because it was just like there was nobody I could look up to like, oh, this has been done before. So I
Right.
was like, how is this gonna work? But then I figured, okay, well, I'm gonna make this work somehow.
Right.
And one thing was for sure was that I wasn't going to stop doing either of those things,
Right,
physics or
right.
math or music. So
Yeah, and I mean it's pretty unique because, as you mentioned before, right? You don't really see other people doing this, but someone's got to start, right? So that's where you stand. All right. So my next question is for Miki. So you pursued engineering at MIT and then later industrial design in the Netherlands. So it's kind of like a mixture between creative and science, right? And what do you think the role of music, or at least what role did music and creativity play in your development as an engineer?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say that music has taught me a lot about communication, actually, and being okay with expressing my thoughts and learning a vocabulary that, like a creative vocabulary. Definitely, like like first I was more involved with just like wind ensembles where you just read notes on a piece of paper. But then I started to join jazz ensembles and jazz combos,
Nice.
and in those atmospheres, you have to come up with your own thoughts, right? You have to improvise,
right.
and you have to be able to produce them and get them across. If you're, trading fours and like, yeah, you're just trying to communicate with other musicians, musical thoughts. So I think that was quite, yeah, helpful in a way. Like it didn't like it wasn't directly contributing to my engineering, but I feel like being more confident in communicating
Right.
was really
Right.
helpful. Yeah.
I think so. Let's talk about, because you mentioned communication, right? So how do you maintain communication? Because I mean, it's an international orchestra. You have people from like different places, right? And you probably don't, you can't see them often, right? So how do you communicate? How do you practice?
yeah, this is a very kind of challenging part of the logistics. So so my orchestra, we don't rehearse regularly, I guess if that makes sense. we like during the pandemic, what we would do is I would send like computer generated recordings of the pieces that I had composed, because of course the tricky part is not only are we not together in person,
Right.
but the pieces that we're playing have not been performed
Right.
before.
Right.
So the musicians couldn't refer to a like a
Right.
YouTube video. So I would send them a computer generated recording of these pieces, and then and then people would do the actual recording like on their own. Like they would record themselves playing their part while listening to the recording of the full piece. So they still felt like they were playing with other musicians, even though it was just on their own.
Right.
And then we would meet regularly at that time to just like talk about logistics and talk about how the recordings were going. And now, of course, post pandemic, we don't meet as regularly, but we still have, like, my orchestra still has like a board. So there's like a leadership team that helps out with various tasks, and we have, as far as like our activities around the world, most of them in the countries are now managed by people that we have on the ground there. So in the beginning, it was like a lot of work to like obviously set up those connections, set up the teams there, how everything was going to work. But now it's like it's self-sustaining in the sense that they just kind of run everything, and then from time to time I'll like just check in, or like other members of the board will check in.
Right. So basically, right now, I mean, it's like they can sustain even without you being present.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. Right. So you founded TD Orchestra in 2022, right? So, and within a few years, it has toured dozens of countries. So I guess you kind of mentioned this already before, but what inspired you to create it, and why was international collaboration such an important part of your vision?
Yeah, I think for me, the thing that I guess really kind of motivated me or drove me to, I guess inspired me to create the orchestra was seeing how music was able to bring people together, particularly during that pandemic. And for me, even just like going back to college, and even before then in high school, like I've always enjoyed being a leader and bringing people together. And so I wanted to provide the musicians in my orchestra, particularly, with like a unique experience, something that they wouldn't forget. And with the international connections that were starting to be made, I saw that really, I think, and not just as I mentioned, the power of music to bring people together, but kind of my desire to kind of travel around the world and to influence people globally. That really, I think, motivated me to kind of show people that it's really about like the way that people act is determined by the way that people think, and just by and leadership can go a really long way in terms of getting people to think a certain way, and then that translates into people acting a certain way, or maybe acting in a different way. Right. And so that's something that I wanted to bring to at least for my orchestra.
And how many members do you have right now?
So right now it's about it's about 170 members right now.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So so next is the question for both of you. So both of you guys have very demanding careers, right? And this, I guess, it reflects to how students and how they live their life, and how, especially at the higher levels, also have demanding academic lives. So what I want to know is, many students struggle to balance academics and their passions. So how do you guys manage to maintain, playing music while pursuing highly competitive STEM careers? So do you want to answer first?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think for me, the most important thing is building community within those passion spaces. So for me, like the music communities I was part of was kind of like a family. And we would help each other out. Like during high school, for example, we were all in similar classes,
Right.
and we also had band practice. And maybe in breaks in band practice, we would help each other with homework, for example. And so by doing it with other people and being in community, that helps a lot with juggling the academics and also the music side. And then, yeah, I think on a more practical side of things, like having good time management skills is essential. So yeah, like over time, I've learned what systems work for me and like how to get things properly organized and shifting gears between like, yeah, music and academics. And at least for me, like music has always been something that gives me energy. So it's nice that like I can do my academics and like maybe that drains me a bit, but then I take a break, practice trumpet for a bit, and then I feel rejuvenated,
Refreshed, yeah.
and then I can continue on.
Right. What about you?
Yeah, so piggyback a lot of similar things I think to what Miki said in terms of building a community. Also, like the time management is on a practical note is very important. Like that was something that like in high school I was involved. I was taking the most, not only the most amount of classes that my school could that my school allowed, but also the most challenging classes. But then I was also involved in many extracurriculars from not just music to athletics to robotics and other various academic competitions and even like volunteer work in my community. So it was just so many things that I had to manage that I had to be very conscious of like, okay, this is how I'm budgeting my time. And then the more I started doing that, the more kind of automatic it became. To when I was in college, I was still doing many of those activities in addition to pursuing, in addition to my academic studies. But it became more automatic to where I didn't have to be as think about it as much. And so now it's just, it's automatic for me. But also, I think it's something that Miki mentioned, which I think is important, is that music does give me energy. And so, sometimes I'd be working on, a tough homework assignment, and then I, take a break, go to, orchestra rehearsal or something, and then, when I go back to my homework, it's like I'm rejuvenated, and often I actually, have a clearer mind to homework. So in that sense, I think music really kind of helped me in some way. Kind of sometimes I felt like I had to kind of get away from my academic studies. And
So that's actually quite a lot of things you do, school, music, athletic, volunteering work. I mean, that's more than what a student can do usually. I mean, is there anything that you can't do at this point? Because that's a lot of things. All right. So now the next question is about your college, right? MIT and Brown. Those are very popular, very competitive, highly competitive schools. But I think everyone want to go to Brown, MIT, Harvard, and so on. But what made these two schools really stood out, and why did you choose these two? I guess you can start first, and then Miki can.
So I guess we could start with MIT. So for me, so MIT was not like, I know people who apply and people who get in who it's like they're like, oh, MIT was my dream school since I was like 5 years old or whatever. Like that was not the case for me. Like I started I had this. I knew I wanted to study physics and math, and then as I was getting into my junior year of high school, and my parents were like, okay, yeah, it's time to start thinking about applying for colleges, and so we were doing these like various college visits and all these admissions events, or the representatives from these universities would visit, and I thought, oh yeah, maybe MIT would be a good place for me because of course it's has one of the top programs, not just in STEM but specifically in physics, and so I thought for me that MIT would be a good place to go for those studies. And I also knew that like music was something that I wanted to pursue, and I actually did consider like going to places that had like that were more known for like music programs specifically. But I knew I kind of came to the realization that music is something that I could and would find a way to continue anywhere I went. So that's kind of what why I chose MIT.
What about you, Miki?
Yeah, for me, also it wasn't like a huge dream of mine, for example, because I didn't even know I was going to go into engineering until like junior year. But anyway, yeah, for me, I thought it was very attractive because it had the most colorful student life and extracurriculars. So kind of like what Tatsuya mentioned about like the music program. Like music program at MIT is amazing. Arts as well. Like everything is quite well funded. There's a lot of access to resources, and the students are very passionate about all the different things that they do. So I think that was the thing that drew me especially to MIT.
But did you guys have any dream schools before you applied to MIT?
I did not.
No, you didn't know. How about you?
I think when I was younger, Princeton, and I
Princeton?
did actually get into Princeton
Oh,
as
okay.
well.
Same program?
Yeah, in mechanical engineering, but I'm from New Jersey, and Princeton is in New Jersey. So
Kinda
I
wanna
wanted to
get
go a
away.
bit further away. So MIT was like kind of, because I got into Princeton and Caltech as well, so
Oh,
in
nice.
California. So then MIT was like the Goldilocks distance
Right,
away.
right.
And also for mechanical engineering, it had more resources.
I see.
So that was the reason.
All right. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about more about like music and numbers or science. So we're gonna combine them too. So I think so. Here I have a question. It's for both of you. So one of the oldest discoveries connecting math and music dates back to Pythagoras, and he found that pleasing musical intervals correspond with simple numerical ratios. As both a physicist or an engineer and a musician, do you feel music is fundamentally mathematical, or is there something beyond the numbers?
Well, I so I think music is much more than just beyond the numbers. Like, I mean, in terms of the fundamental structure of music, I would say it's mathematical. But I think most of what music is about is it's more than just more than just the numbers. It's about being in a particular space, maybe sharing an experience with your fellow performers and with an audience. And I think I think most of why people play music is to kind of have that experience with playing with other people. Like,
Yeah.
at least for me, that's why I play music. Like, of course, it's very you can study the math behind it, you can study the music theory behind it, but that interests me, but that's not the reason why ultimately the reason why I'm a
Right.
musician.
That's not the soul, right? Okay. What about you?
Yeah,
Miki?
I mean, music predates any mathematical concepts, I believe, right? So it's something very intrinsic to the human experience, and it's about expression and feeling things. So, yeah, I definitely agree with Tatsuya that it's like way more than just the numbers, though
Right.
it can be kind of broken down into that. of
Right,
course.
right. Okay. So I want to talk about your last piece. I think it's what makes us human. Is that it? Right. So, and we talk about like how music is beyond numbers, it's beyond theory. It's there's a soul in music, right? So now with the rise of AI, I want to talk more about it, right? So as you can see, a lot of people can create music. They don't even play music, but they can create it through an app or a software. So as AI becomes, better and better at generating music, what do you think remains uniquely human about a composition?
So for me, I think it's really like when human composers write something, there's just like a certain like there's a certain amount of like their soul that goes into it that
Right.
like a composition maybe it's based on certain memories that they've had, or maybe a certain way that they feel, or maybe certain people that they remember in their lives, and when you play that music, you can kind of feel it, not just in the actual notes that are on the page, but even in terms of the way that human performers play or recognize a certain piece. And that's something which I feel like listening to AI music, of course it can sound good, it sounds
Yeah.
perfect, maybe even too perfect, but I think there's just that element of like the human soul that went into composing a particular piece, which is I think just lacking in AI music.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Miki, on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like when a person creates music, there's intentionality, and as you mentioned,
Right.
like there's also like the mosaic of the memories that they bring into that. And that's something that AI doesn't have. They just have all these algorithms and all this data, but it's not personal to the AI. So I think adding that personhood to music gives it a soul.
Can you actually tell when you listen to music and you're like, I think AI wrote this. This is not human made. Can you tell?
I can kind of,
You
I
can
can
tell.
hear it, yeah.
Okay. What about you?
I haven't really listened to much AI music that I know of.
That you know of.
I'm not completely sure. But like when I've listened to a podcast and they like played like some clips of it, I was just like, okay, like, but I'm biased, of course, because I already know it's made by AI.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna open the the question to our audience here. So if you guys have a question, please raise your hand and then wait until we hand you the microphone and then introduce yourself before you ask the question. Right. So anyone here want to ask a question? Anyone? Going once, twice? All right. So we have one right here.
Um, Thank you for the chance. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Devi Chanur Aliza, and I'm from Universitas Esa Unggul, Jakarta. And then I'm currently studying informatics engineering and computer science faculty. And then I'm here to ask both of you a question. Um, I'm really, really amazed with your music. It's mesmerized me so much. But there is like one question I've been thinking since I've been listening to your music, and then for the Miki, you pursue mechanical engineering, and then for Tatsuya, you do physics and math, and then you do musics. And I was thinking, how do you guys like manage your schedule so it doesn't crash into like one and another? And I'm still thinking like, how do they manage their time so they can practice musics and then they can pursue their dreams like Miki, your dream is being I mean, you like mechanical engineering and then you study that, but you still have time to practice. And I just want to know how.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Good
you.
question. Thank you. So how do you guys manage your time? Right. So.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's like I've built up a habit of practicing throughout the years. And I think the habits are really like what is nice to fall back on, because then you don't have to have this decision fatigue of like, okay, what do I do next?
Right.
So like, I think I had that kind of system of like, okay, every day or every other day I would practice. And like for myself, I would have the expectation of like, okay, only 5 minutes, right? Because if it's 5 minutes, it's easy and you can do it.
Right.
But usually, if I set up my instrument and I'm getting warmed up, that 5 minutes easily turns into 30 minutes.
Right.
So I think that's something that you can over time build into your schedule, like having a habit of practicing and being diligent about it. And then it becomes very natural and organic to do it. And then, yeah, also like just a more practical thing is like I love lists, I love to-do lists, I love time blocking, so like blocking out times in my calendar for specific activities, and that's obviously very helpful as well.
Right. What about you?
Yeah, I think exactly what Miki said, and something that I mentioned earlier. It's like it's kind of a habit that I've built, managing my time to the point where now it's just like automatic for me, and to me it's like I do what I want when I want. In reality, it's really based on this habit and kind of breaking down my time as I did when I was younger. But also there's just like and Miki has this too, but there's just like a passion for music that we have. And like for me personally, it's like I can't live without playing music in some form. So it's like if I were just doing physics, like something, I would just feel like something's missing in my life. And so there's just like at some point I need to do music.
Right. All right. So it's good to build a habit so you can manage your time better. Okay. Right. So any more question from our? Okay. So we have one at the back there.
Hi. So my name is Dewi, and I'm also from Jakarta. It is actually very interesting, knowing that someone from a background of doing a lot of equations and all that, also doing music, has always been interesting, an interesting thing to know. Um, I am curious about how, when you're in a background of doing physics or engineering, from what I know, or as I know, as much as I know, usually working with equation means that you solve problems, right? But then, like in creative like process, you also get art block and all stuff like that. So these two problems requires a certain distinct cognition, I would say, from your brain. It's like doing creative and fixing equation. You obviously is very different. Do you use? How do you usually fix like art blocks or get over the process of making music and then getting less inspiration, I would say, from the different between that and also from how you solve problems in like physics or engineering or maths or equations and all stuff like that. I would really love to hear your thoughts about this. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very good question. So, how do you overcome, those blocks?
Yeah, so this is actually not, at least for physics, it's actually not as different as people think because one of the things that makes a great physicist is their ability to think creatively, and so it's not just about the solving the equations, right? Solving the equations is like a tool to help you realize a particular goal. Just like in music, you have notes, you have instruments. Those are tools to help you convey a certain message, right? And so, but at the end of the day, the task that you're really trying to solve is you're trying to create something, right? And that applies for whether it's music or whether it's physics, and also the simplest solutions are often the best solutions. So you don't need to overthink if you're composing music. You don't need to overcomplicate things. You don't need to have all this complicated music theory stuff going into your compositions. If it sounds good, then that's for me, that's enough. And in physics, it's the same thing. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. If someone's done something before, if someone's done a part of a calculation before, you don't need to spend time, recalculating, those equations.
Okay, Miki, do you want to answer this also?
I don't really have too much to add, honestly.
All right. Okay. So, so we only have about a minute left. So I guess before we wrap up, is there anything that you want to say to anyone here who maybe want to pursue, whether music or science? Any advice for them? Maybe we can start with Tatsuya.
Yeah, my advice would be, this really sounds like cliche, right? And it was mentioned in the beginning, but really like follow your dreams. Like it sounds like super cliche and everyone tells you that, but I think it's really important that you do the things that you want to do in your life and not do the things that other people want to do, not the things that other people want you to do, right? Whether it's, things that you're doing because you think it might impress people, or maybe you're doing something because your parents, think that that's the best career for you. Like do the thing that you want to do because you will be the most successful at the things that you enjoy the most in your life, regardless of what it is and how insignificant you think it might be.
Miki?
Yeah, and I think for me, it's go with the flow, kind of. Like, whatever opportunities come your way, really consider taking them because you never know where they'll lead you.
All right. Okay. So follow your dreams and don't miss an opportunity. All right. So before we close, I want to thank our speakers and performers tonight. Thank you for reminding us that curiosity has no boundaries, right? And the stories that we've heard today demonstrate that success is not about limiting ourselves to one possibility or a single path, but about finding meaningful connections between the things that we love. All right. So thank you so much, Miki. Thank you so much, Tatsuya. And I'm gonna give the floor back to our MC.
Yay, let's give another round of applause, everyone. Yes, Thank you so much for our amazing moderator, Caroline Darmanto, and the Tatsuya Daniel Orchestra for inspiring discussion and wonderful performance tonight. And thank you so much everyone for coming today, especially from Universitas Negeri Jakarta. Thank you. And Universitas Esa Unggul. Yes, thank you so much guys. And to stay updated about our upcoming events, please do follow our social media. We are at Instagram, Facebook, X, and YouTube AT America. Once again, my name is Meriska Putri, and see you on the next AT America events. Can you guys? Yeah.